U.S. President Joe Biden has insisted once again that he intends to stay in the presidential race despite concerns about his mental capacity. In a letter to fellow Democrats in Congress, he said he would not be running if he didn't think he was, quote, the best person to beat Donald Trump. Biden asked them to stop speculating over his future, arguing it only benefits his competitor. Some Democrats have questioned the president's ability to serve another term after his disastrous debate performance last month. Jonathan Weiler is a political scientist and professor at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. He's written a lot about polarization in U.S. politics. Jonathan, thanks for joining us. President Biden came out today clearly in more of a fighting spirit, calling on Democrats to end the intra-party drama and basically to coalesce around him again. Is this going to be enough to silence his critics in the party?
Well, so what President Biden has going for him is he is the presumptive nominee, not to mention the sitting president of the United States. He's won 99% of the delegates to the upcoming Democratic National Convention, and it's going to be very difficult to unseat him from the nomination if he does not want to be unseated. On the other hand, if the news coverage in the United States focuses almost exclusively on his cognitive capacity over the next several weeks, it's going to create what I think will be an essentially untenable situation for his reelection campaign.
Now, Jonathan, Biden also told critics today in an interview, quote, if you don't like me, challenge me at the Democratic convention. Do you think that that could really happen?
It's going to be very difficult. I mean, as I said a second ago, 99% of the delegates who will be going to the Democratic convention next month in Chicago are pledged to President Biden. That's not a legally binding pledge, but those delegates are generally Biden loyalists. And so I think when Biden says, try to challenge me at the convention, he's saying that knowing that without his consent, there really isn't a realistic path to replacing him as the nominee.
Now, one of the things that Biden's been arguing here is that his critics within the party are a few elites, but that the regular voters in the party already picked him as their candidate. How true is that?
Well, I think there is some truth to it. I mean, it is true that several million Democrats in primaries throughout the country this spring voted for President Biden. And in that regard, he definitely has the imprimatur of Democratic legitimacy on his side. On the other hand, I think the polling at least suggests that there is tremendous ambivalence, even among Democratic voters, let alone Republican and independent voters, about whether Biden is fit to serve another term in office. The most recent poll that I saw within the last few days said that 72% of respondents thought Biden was too old to run. One can think that that's unfair or not, but that's not just about the elites. That's a significant portion of the electorate that has misgivings about Biden's fitness to continue in office for another term.
Well, and there hasn't been sort of an open race in this cycle against other strong Democratic candidates, has there?
No, there hasn't. And, you know, I think this is part of the problem, that it's almost too late to make a change. I mean, obviously, if Biden had decided several months ago that he wasn't going to run for a second term, something he said in 2020 that he would consider seriously just being a one-term president, the Democrats could have had an open primary and a serious contest to replace him. And as I said, we're now at the point where it's probably too late for that. And among the things that means is that if Biden were to step down or give up the nomination, it would very likely be his current vice president and ticket mate, Kamala Harris, who would replace him. Because I just don't think there's time for a meaningful democratic, small d democratic process to replace Biden on the ticket.
Okay, Jonathan, I just want to play a clip of First Lady Jill Biden. She was in North Carolina today campaigning for her husband. Let's take a listen.
For all the talk out there about this race, Joe has made it clear that he's all in. That's the decision that he's made. And just as he has always supported my career, I am all in too.
Now, Jonathan, there's been a lot of talk about the First Lady's role in this. How significant is she in keeping the Biden campaign going at this point?
I think she's vital. I mean, I think from everything we know, Biden pays very close attention to his immediate family and their opinions and perspective, and none more than his wife. And so I think as long as she is fully in his corner and believes that he can do the job of running another campaign and being reelected president, it's going to be hard to see how we get a different outcome. I will say that the fact that the Biden people, including Jill right now, are saying he's all in doesn't necessarily tell us entirely what's happening behind the scenes. I mean, you know, they are, of course, going to say what they're saying publicly now until the moment they make the decision, because they know that any wavering will feed the feeding frenzy that's already going on. So I would expect this from them, no matter what they're thinking internally. But it certainly does seem right now that they are committed to staying in the race. And
Jonathan Weiler,
Jill,
thank you so much. We're going to have to leave it there. Thanks so much for your insights.
yeah.